Have you ever said yes when every part of you wanted to say no just to keep the peace, avoid guilt, or not let someone down? Well, if so, I need you to know you are not alone because boundaries are one of the healthiest forms of leadership, and yet they're often the hardest to keep without feeling guilty. Listen, today we're talking about how to set boundaries that protect your peace and your purpose guilt free. Come on, let's get into it. Welcome to Transformation Station, the podcast where we explore ideas, stories, and strategies that help you grow and lead with authenticity and impact. I'm your host, Adrienne Benton, and guess what? I am absolutely thrilled because today we are celebrating something special. That's right. We are celebrating our 50th episode. Oh, I want to say thank you so much because of you, we're celebrating our 50th episode and we just crossed the 2,100 download mark. Woo! Listen, you did it. Thank you so much for your continued engagement. And I want to invite you right now to keep on rolling with this leadership community because in the next coming weeks, I'm going to have some amazing announcements to share with you. You don't want to miss it. So, as a matter of fact, right now, go ahead and make sure that you hit that subscribe button. Subscribe on Facebook, YouTube. That's right, Buzzsprout, Apple Podcasts, wherever you are listening or you are watching. Subscribe right now because I don't want you to miss a Monday or a Wednesday podcast. Well, listen, today I'm thrilled because in this live episode today, we're talking about a topic that really hits close to home for most of us. We're talking about guilt-free boundaries. Listen, if this is for you, I want you to tune in and also invite another leader to join you right now. So today, thrilled about the guest that we have. Let me tell you a little bit about Garrett. All right, so Garrett Wood, he's a clinical hypnotherapist, executive functioning specialist, and founder of Gnosis Therapy. He works with executives, founders, and entrepreneurs who want sustainable high performance without trading health or relationships. He applies outcome based coaching, somatic regulation, and clinical hypnotherapy to end the boom and bust cycle of burnout because sustainable success is built through your well being, not at its expense. Transformation Station community, go ahead and help me to welcome right now. Garrett, welcome to Transformation Station.
Thank you for having me, Adrian. So excited to be here for your 50th show. That's so cool.
Woo! Yes, we are absolutely excited. And it's just proof that we all are looking for community. So, listen, as I was thinking about this episode, Garrett, I was thinking that for leaders, setting boundaries many times tends to be one of the hardest things for leaders to manage, not because we don't need them, but many times because either we care so deeply about the people we're serving, or sometimes we feel that pressure to get things done. Maybe we're in a situation where we don't have as much manpower as we need. So I want to start right here by asking you, right? When we talk about boundaries, what are some of the common myths or misconceptions that you have found that people have about setting boundaries, especially in professional settings?
Yeah, a great question. I love the fact that we're talking to leaders that are doing well, have been successful, because they'll understand this.
Yes.
When you have been successful, it's because you've been willing to go above and beyond what most other people aren't willing to do. And you've been doing it for long enough that you know where and when you need to push to be a little bit more outcome to get that thing based. And you've done a really good job at it. And then
Mm,
the hard part is you've gotten so good at it that sometimes it becomes the go-to trick that you rely on.
I see.
And that's not a bad thing in the short run, but if it becomes the only trick, that's when
Mhm.
we start getting in trouble. And so
Mm,
oftentimes leaders get to this state where they think if I don't do it, it won't get done. If I'm not pushing it or pushing my people, it won't get through when we need it to. It won't be done the way it needs to be done because they're caring, driven, passionate people. And
Mhm.
unfortunately, that passion without containment, without boundaries, can actually be the cause of a lot of burnout. It can be a
Mhm.
cause of a lot of stress and distress when it's the only trick that they have.
Yeah, I think that that's really true. And to our listeners and our viewers who are listening and watching right now, I want to invite you. Here in Transformation Station, we always take a moment to reflect. So as Garrett and I are having this conversation, I want to invite you to stop and think about what are some of the common myths that you are experiencing or have experienced when it comes to you setting boundaries in a professional setting. So Garrett, I was thinking about this and I want to hear your thoughts, right? Sometimes I've seen that some leaders will say, well, if I set boundaries, that means that I'm not a team player. Have you ever seen that one?
Yes, that if I set boundaries, I'm going to either let down my team or I'm not part of the culture that we're working with, that I'm putting myself above and beyond my team or the organization. And
Mhm.
that definitely is a belief that shows up for sure. Yes.
Absolutely. I've also seen this one, and this is one that for me, I'll just raise my hand and say for me that I've struggled with the myth that good leaders should always be available. Hmm. Let me
That
get
is a
your
tough one.
then I'll give you my
Yeah.
deal.
Yeah, that is a common one. That if I'm available, I'm being good. I'm being a good leader. I'm being responsive. If my team needs something and I can respond in a moment's notice, then that'll make it easier for them.
Mm,
Um, that is a common one. The hard part with that, though, is if you're not in your best state,
mhm,
you need your rest. You have your own personal
mhm,
boundaries that you need to have with other people. You have your own things in your life that you need to work on. If you're
mhm.
not in a good state and they raise their hand and you show up in that dysregulated state, you're actually not in a position to be helpful to them in that moment.
Say that
That's
again.
if you
Say
show
that.
up and you're not okay, you're not in a position to be able to help that person. And in fact, showing up in that state can actually make them feel worse. If they're
Mm,
dysregulated, they're up here and they need to come down, they need that from you to do it. But if you're up here and they're up here, I see parents sometimes overwhelmed trying to get things done. Their kids are not doing okay. They need a nap. They're hungry. And they say, like, start crying. And the parent turns to them, like, oh, you're crying over this? I'll give you something to cry about.
mhm. Yes. Mhm,
Yep. Sometimes our team members, we're all people. We have our needs and we're like feeling that distress. And if a leader and you show up and you're feeling that distress, we're
mm,
both just making it worse and worse and worse and worse. And so nothing's getting resolved. So now we put
mm,
in a lot of effort and actually made things less collaborative, less
mhm.
effective.
Absolutely. So, viewers and listeners, I want to remind you, Garrett just shared with us, and he said something that was really powerful, right? If you are not taking care of yourself, you can't take care of anybody else. If you're not showing up being your best self, the best version of you, how can anyone else? And, Garrett, I found over the years that our team models, or rather, we model for them, right? They go off of our example. And so it's really important. We can't expect our team to have boundaries if we don't set boundaries ourselves, or if we don't model as a leader being able to have boundaries. And I found this quote that says the best leaders set clear expectations about when and how they can be reached, and they empower others to take ownership instead of creating dependency. So, you know how I kind of raise my hand over the years? I've had to learn that when I go on vacation, I'm on vacation. If I want to kind of go and check my phone or check my email, I can do it quietly, but I don't need to respond back because there's never an off button then, right? And if I don't respect my own boundary of time off, being able to stop and renew, my team won't do it either, you know? And so we're talking about myth busting right now to our viewers and our listeners. So, Gary, let me ask you this question. What subtle early signs of burnout am I probably dismissing as normal stress? And how do I know when I'm crossing that dangerous line?
Yeah, the best way to know if you've crossed the line is if you've crossed it before. The
Ooh.
person who knows where that line is the one who's been back and forth a few
Mm,
times. They know exactly where it is. And
mm,
then the hard part is they keep figuring, well, how did I get here? I'm here again. This is my third time in burnout, or fourth even. It gets more, if you've burned out before, you're more likely to have burned out again, because
Mhm.
we don't necessarily know how to put those boundaries in place, those guardrails up to protect our passion from turning
Mhm.
into obsession. People talk about, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. And that might be true for some people, but for those people, it's the ones that have figured out how to put those guardrails up and protect themselves and their passion from
Mhm.
overwhelming their whole life and spilling over to everywhere. So you can be on vacation and actually be on vacation and not be at work still. Um,
Woo.
I always imagine people out there with their phone on the paddle boards and snorkeling, or, going for a walk in their three-piece business suits. If they really wore the attire of where their mind is at when they're on vacation, it'd be a little bit easier to spot if we were burned out or not. But, we're all out there in our board shorts and flip flops.
I feel like saying ouch right now. You are stepping all over my toes. Like, whoa, this is real.
It
That
takes
I
one to know one.
I never really thought about that. And I think so where I'm doubling down on is where you said, like, when you're on vacation, if you put on vacation clothes instead of still being on vacation in that three-piece suit when you go out for a walk, walking by the beach, your mindset adapts to adjust to, oh my goodness. Yeah. Wow. Okay, this is good. Listen, Garrett's dropping some serious gems right now. I'm inviting everybody. You're watching, you're listening. Go ahead in the chat. Talk to us. Talk to us. Share with us right now. What's resonating with you? Talk to us. What are the early signs of burnout that you have noticed? Now, I have a couple of signs I'm gonna, just share with you, Garrett. Emotional numbness or irritability, right? I've been in workspaces where leaders, it's like every 2 seconds they're irritable about something. There's just in the atmosphere, it's like everybody's tense and stressed out, and you do something, the boss picks on you, the boss screams on you, or emotional numbness. They just don't care, or they give up this air like, I don't care, right? And so, to our leaders, if you find that when small things start to feel overwhelming and you're emotionally disconnected, that's not normal stress, that is strain. And
Absolutely.
Garrett, I think it's so important that we call out things and name it for what it is, right? Have you seen this?
Yeah, I can talk about my own experience too, because before I was ever a practitioner helping people avoid burnout and recover from it, I had my own team and my own team of teams. And
Mhm,
there's this vision you have of how things could be, and frankly, how they should be. And then your passion and drive to see that happen. And you have to work through the people to accomplish that. And you're
mhm,
there to give them the skills and the abilities and draw out from them their own skills and abilities, so that way we can all put this work together. And that
mhm,
passion, that vision is exciting. It's what most leaders care about, being able to deliver. And
mhm,
things can be happening on paper. You can be making sure that, like, the profits are there, the work is done on time, the quality of the work is there. But if you're also not focused on the quality of those relationships,
mhm.
in the long run, you're going to see a lot of turnover. You're going to see a lot of burnout in yourself and others. Eventually, 18 months of that focus without checking in with those human relationships is going to create a draw and a toll.
Mm,
Um, I know that when I finally went and got some support for myself to work through some of my irritability and frustration from what could be versus what we're seeing, and that gap showing up every moment of every day with every interaction, you're like, that is so frustrating. We're so close. The closer we get, the more frustrated I am that we're not quite there yet.
yeah, yeah.
But that feeling is contagious.
Mm,
Emotions are contagious. And when you're the leader, people on your team look to you. There's this flock response where they're like, is this okay? And they turn to you. And if you're feeling that, they're going to begin to absorb and feel that. And that's going to permeate the entire team and the entire culture and all the work you do. And so
mercy.
it's really important to be able to catch that irritability early and do something with it. And when I had
Mm,
to figure out how to handle that for myself,
mhm,
our profits went up, our turnover
mhm,
went down. And more than that, the fun that we had at work, the enjoyment we had, the camaraderie, the collaborative effort was there. No one else on the team changed, but I went and got some support and everything got better. So if you're a leader, you are the most important part of this
mm,
process. It's that human piece that people really need from you.
mm. My goodness gracious. Again, to our listeners and viewers, I want to invite you right now that this is the moment for assessment. Garrett shared some things with us, and he gave us a personal testimonial of how things changed for his team in the work environment when he made some changes. And you said a powerful statement. I went and got help for myself. Leaders, please, this is not selfish. Self-care is not selfish, right? Brene Brown has a phrase that says, oh gosh, and now it just lost me. Something is kindness. It'll come back to me in a moment. Um, but where I was going was, when we take the time to do a self assessment, when we take the time to do self care, we are giving ourselves the gift and we are giving our team a gift of being present. We're giving them a gift of being present, fully engaged. So let me ask you this question. How do leaders set clear, effective boundaries without feeling guilty, selfish, or worried that they're going to disappoint people or damage work relationships?
So there's two parts to that. One, we could go get a time machine and we could go back in time and start all over again. Maybe choose some different parents, a different household that you grew up in. Or we could feel the guilt, feel those feelings, and eventually work through them over time. Because just because we set a boundary and it's a new skill for us, we're going to have a new emotional experience. It's not always going to be easy. And it doesn't need to be easy to be effective. We just need to start doing it. And then when those feelings of guilt, fear, shame, whatever that emotion that shows up for you when you set that boundary, the real work isn't necessarily setting the boundary or even maintaining it. It's working through that emotional response that shows up. So for us to not feel those feelings in the future as we continue to maintain those boundaries, it's actually just learning how to process them when they come through. Those are
Mm,
normal things. And it's
mm,
about changing and adapting to a new environment and becoming a different version of yourself that's more
mm,
effective as a leader because you've been able to put those boundaries in place and handle the emotions that show up as a result of doing it.
mm.
It's not easy, but it's definitely worth it every single time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Double down on that right there. It's not easy, but it's worth it. What? Expand that a little bit.
Yeah, if we don't put in those boundaries, you set up a situation where everybody's dependent upon you. So you can't take a vacation because everything falls apart. There's no
Mm,
system, there's no structure. And if
mhm,
you have to be everywhere, every time, everywhere, everywhere, all at once, doing
mhm,
everything to everybody, there's
mm,
nothing left for you. And you are going to burn out, or you're going to stick around and everyone's going to be worse because of it. And so it won't get better, it'll only get worse over time. But if we
mm,
do put those boundaries in place, there is going to be an area of where it feels challenging for yourself, for others. But then over
mm,
time, it gets easier and easier and easier to be able to
mm,
maintain that system, that structure, those results.
mhm,
And every time you set a boundary, you feel the guilt, shame, blame, fear that shows up, and you manage it. The next time it gets less intense, and the next
mm,
time it gets less intense and less intense. So if you
mhm,
set a boundary and you feel guilt, great. You're
mm,
doing the work. You've started the process. Next time
mhm.
it will feel easier, I promise.
So you're pretty much saying keep on going. Don't
Do
stop.
not stop. Don't stop.
Don't stop. Get it. But I
Yeah,
think that brings a point because many times when we start to feel a degree of discomfort, we stop. And we take
100%.
that discomfort as a signal, like, oh, this is not, but no, what I hear you saying is that discomfort is a sign that we're growing. We're pushing past, right? We're getting out of the discomfort into the comfort, right? And producing a new norm. I love that. And along the lines of what you were saying, I was thinking about this replacing guilt with gratitude. Instead of focusing on what you're saying no to, focus on what you're saying yes to: alignment, health, presence, focus. Listeners and viewers, I want you for yourself to make a list of when you set up boundaries, what are you saying yes to? Oh, I have found for myself, Garrett, that when I have done that, it actually helped my mindset. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But it's almost like what you were saying with putting on that vacation clothes. It helped my mindset to stay where I saw hope instead of defeat, right? And I thought about this one too. There's a word integrity that comes up all the time in leadership. And when we set up boundaries, we reframe boundaries as acts of integrity, not isolation. Boundaries aren't walls, they're promises to show up at your best. What do you think about that, Garrett?
They're the structures that we need, right?
Mm,
They talk about parenting styles, and there's a few different ones. There's four. There's authoritarian, authoritative, permissive, or uninvolved. And a lot of times our leadership models are based upon those parenting styles that we experience. And
mhm,
sometimes we think that if we're not showing up, we're not involved, that we're
mm,
not doing good work.
mercy.
Um, and so we're being permissive or uninvolved. But really, authoritative parenting style is shown to be the most important for children to be born in because they're able to be independent and effective on their own
Mm,
and to be able to have their own integrity and stick through goals over a long period of time. And
mm,
so the idea behind that is, hey, this is what our outcome is. This is what we're
yeah,
trying to do. This is how we've chosen to do it. This is why we can't do X, Y, and Z. And I
mm,
know that we're going to have feelings about it, and that's okay, but we got
mm,
to get through it together. And that's
mm,
kind of like a quick one sentence way of that authoritative parenting style,
mhm,
which has been shown that when leaders adopt that same style, they're
mhm,
operating in their own integrity, the integrity of the organization, and for the integrity of the people on their team. And it seems to
mm,
be really effective at helping themselves continue to set boundaries. Like you said, I'm
mhm,
not saying no to them. I'm
mm.
saying yes to
Yeah.
this thing that we've all agreed upon is important.
Yes, yes, this is powerful. This is really powerful. And again, to our listeners and viewers, let us know. Put it in the chat in the comment section. What is resonating with you? Even go ahead and share some of your own testimonials that have to do with boundaries. So, so Garrett, that brings me to this question, right? Why, from your experience and your research, why do so many high achievers? Why do we struggle with guilt when setting boundaries? And before you answer, I just kind of want to clarify a little bit in terms of okay, so I know people are listening and saying, Garrett's right. I need to set boundaries. But then if we know we need to do it, right? Why do we struggle with guilt when we go ahead and we try to set boundaries?
Yeah, a lot of us grew up in environments where the beliefs that we made about ourselves, others, and the world that we operate in are still there operating underneath the surface, whether we're aware of it or not. And sometimes we go, okay, if I know that everyone else is okay, then it's okay for me to feel okay and relax. And if other people aren't okay, then it's not okay for me to relax. And we learned that in a really powerful way when we were really young. And so, whether we're consciously aware of that or not, that belief is still operating underneath the surface. So if we take a step back and say, no, I'm going to care for myself first, we're violating that belief that's become a part of our identity. At least part of us believes that that's still true. Even though another part's like, no, I need to set boundaries. It's the right thing to do. It's important. There's still another part of us that feels like, oof, but that's violating what kept me safe when I was a kid, an important value that I learned when I was 3 to 12 years old that I may not even remember, but as an important part of how I show up in the world and operate with others.
I love this 1000%. And that brings me to this. I was thinking about this while you were talking, right? Sometimes as leaders, we misunderstand service versus sacrifice. Many
Absolutely.
leaders equate serving others with self sacrifice. True service doesn't mean depletion. I'm going to say that one more time. True service does not mean you burn yourself into the ground into depletion. It means contribution from a place of balance. And I know for leaders, when we talk about balance, many of us, right? I'm raising my hand. Many of us, Garrett, we struggle with that word balance, right? But it's so important because I think that the guilt will fade or starts to fade when we understand sustained impact requires sustained well being. Mm.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
Absolutely.
High achievers, I know you're listening and you're watching right now. I want you to think right now. Don't just hear us to hear us, but really do some self assessments. And here's why guilt is the emotional tax. High achievers like ourselves pay for overextending ourselves. Freedom begins when we realize that boundaries aren't barriers to success, they're the foundations of it. I can tell you for myself, after over 2 decades of leadership, right? Organizational leadership, man, I experienced something early on called compassion fatigue. And it was because I was just going, overextending. Like sometimes I found myself jumping in, doing things, and nobody was asking me. Nobody was asking me to do it. You know what I'm saying? I just jumped in. I need to go ahead and do it. I got to lead. I have to show up. Mm-mm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it was a costly tax.
And that thing that sets you up to be a leader in the first place becomes the thing that stops you
Mhm.
from being able to be one in the long run. And
Mhm.
I find it so important for people that are compassionate, empathetic, driven, caring people to
Mhm.
be able to work through this important part. Because if you're not the one in that leadership position, someone who's less empathetic, less compassionate, less understanding will be. And
Mm,
unfortunately, we will all be worse off if those people are in a leadership position versus someone who is empathetic, someone who is compassionate, someone who is understanding. I'd much rather someone who's very susceptible to compassion fatigue being in a leadership position in an
mhm,
organization than someone who is no empathy or a lack of empathy be in a
mm,
leadership position. That's a challenging world for us all to live in. So for
yeah,
us that are passionate driven, caring, empathetic leaders and professionals, we want to make sure that they have the skills that they need to be able to weather that piece so they can continue to show up as the best selves over their entire career, 20, 30, 40, maybe even 50 years now, because we're working well into our adult years now.
yeah, absolutely, 1000%. So let me ask you this question, right? How do you recommend someone respond when a boundary is met with resistance or disappointment? I want to know the answer because I have experienced this, right? But what would you recommend that they do or that we do?
The idea of disappointing someone else and not being okay with it is a challenging one. There's an underlying assumption that if I'm a disappointment to someone in this one moment, that means something about ourselves. And that piece that I disappoint someone, so that means that, and fill in the blank, I'm a whatever descriptive term we want to use there that's probably derogatory, isn't true. It's actually not true. You're going to disappoint people. That is just a normal part of everyday life. And getting good at disappointing people is a challenging task to develop. But understanding why, how, and when you disappoint people and skilled at repairing that relationship is actually more important than trying to avoid that rupture in the first place. Ruptures are going to happen. You're going to disappoint somebody. The idea is, can we get better at skilled at that repair sooner instead?
Hmm. Hmm. This is a really good place of reflection. I'm going to have to watch this on the replay because you really are making me stop and do some serious leadership self-assessments right here as we're going through this, right? And also, Garrett, I want to encourage leaders with this because I had a mentor who told me this. If you're leading, you need to expect resistance because it's normal. When we go to set up boundaries, getting resistance, it's normal. It's not a sign that we're wrong. And I think too many times we second guess our setting up something as a boundary because someone or something says, what do you mean? Why are you doing that? You shouldn't be doing that. You need to be here at 6 in the morning and then leave at 6 p.m. Now, oh my gosh, right? But resistance doesn't mean that your boundary is bad. It means the dynamic is adjusting. What do you
Absolutely.
think about that?
Yeah, that tension, that dynamic tension, it's not personal. It's a process based. Anytime you get a bunch of people in a room and we all work towards a common goal, there's going to be resistance.
Mm-hmm.
That is a good thing. In fact, the more diverse those experiences are and the eventual collaboration that happens, the better the end result becomes. Versus
Yeah.
if we all are just in an echo chamber doing the same thing over and over again, we're leaving so much on the table in those environments that could be done that's so much more effective. We almost want to encourage some level of resistance in a
Mhm.
way that's allowing us to kind of check our blind spots to make sure we're not leaving something out there that's better for everyone. Um,
Mm, mm, mm. I gotta watch this on the replay. Like there's so many good gems here, but you're 1000% correct, right? Hmm. I'm pausing because I just have to think about this for a minute. Woo! One of the things that one of my mentors also shared with me was that when we respond, we need to respond with empathy, not an apology. And I
mm,
think many times we lower our boundaries when we apologize for things that we should not be apologizing for, right?
mm,
You can validate feelings without abandoning your boundary. Leaders, I need you to hear us say this. You can try this, try this. I understand this might be frustrating. When you say, I understand this may be frustrating, you're letting the person know, I see you, I hear you. You are important. And this is the message you're communicating to me. Or you might say, I value this relationship, this work relationship. And then you move forward. But you don't have to say, I'm sorry. that I'm going to leave work on time today. I'm sorry that I did not pick up my phone when you called me at 10 p.m. at night and I was in the bed sleeping, right? But you can say, I understand when you called and I didn't pick up the phone at 10 p.m. That was probably frustrating for you. And then you give that person an opportunity to really tell you what's going on. Because, Garrett, I found that a lot of times when people are complaining and pushing back, it's really not what we're talking about. It's about something beneath that or something connected to that. What have you seen?
Yeah, a lot of the times when we're frustrated, we're responding to an emotion or a belief that's not actually about the person or their actions. Sometimes in the leadership dynamic with someone on the team members stressed out about something. Maybe
Mm,
they're not clear about what they needed to do. Maybe they're not clear about how they need to do it, or maybe something's going on in their personal life where they're in a heightened state. And
mhm,
sometimes you can come forward and be like, "Hey, I can understand you're frustrated about this," but
mhm,
because they're in that heightened state and we're trying to reason with them, there's a
mhm,
disconnect there in communication. So
mm,
sometimes it's easier if we stay regulated, we get into that calm, focused, aware state so we can be fully present. And then we
mhm,
can relate to them, relate with them. And that's what you said, validating their experience. I
yeah,
understand that it sounds like you are frustrated. Sounds
mm,
like when you called at 10 and I didn't pick up, and you were in a moment of crisis that you felt abandoned, left alone, not cared for, not attuned to. What was the feeling that showed up for you there? Okay, that wasn't my intent. And
mhm,
here's the important part. We're here together now. We can talk about that. Then what did you need? What can we do about that now? And in the future, what do you think would be beneficial for us?
mhm,
That idea of regulating yourself first, then
mhm,
relating to that person, and then going through that reasoning process is
mhm.
really important. Because if they're in that dysregulated state and you come in with, well, here's the solution to the problem, we got this figured out, let's go. They're not going to be able to take it in, hear it, understand, or engage with you.
Mhm.
And so that recipe, it's like baking a cake. You got to have all the ingredients there, but then we got to make sure we combine them in the right order. And if we don't put
Yes.
that baking soda in at the right time,
Interesting.
oh,
Disaster.
disaster. Yeah.
1000%. And as we turn the corner on this, I want to share one more best principle before we get to our last interview question. Best principle: understand this, leaders. Boundaries don't damage relationships. Unclear expectations do. When leaders communicate with honesty and compassion, boundaries become an expression of respect, not rejection. And to every leader, high driven leaders in this community that is listening and watching, we want to invite you, allow your guilt-free boundaries to become expressions of respect in the culture of your workplace, not expressions of rejection. So,
Mm.
Garrett, as we turn the corner here, right? I want to ask you this last question. What's one practical change any leader can make today to move from burnout to success, to move from not being able to set boundaries to committing to taking those steps to move forward and setting boundaries? Talk to us.
Yeah. I think you said a great point earlier where it's that validating that experience. If we imagine ourselves setting a boundary, and even in that imagining, us saying those words, we have an emotion or a feeling or a sensation come up, we need to be able to honor that feeling and acknowledge it, not just plow right through it. Because once we acknowledge it and name it, then we can actually have a frame for it. We can say, okay, that's what I'm experiencing. Is that really true? Is that what's actually important? What part of me believes that and doesn't? What part of me wants to see this change that could come from setting this boundary? And what part of me is okay with the way things are? Now we're taking that thought, that feeling, that experience, and being able to examine it a little bit more. And we can kind of calm ourselves down. We can do a couple of long, slow, deep breaths. We can go for a walk. We can journal those ideas. We can voice note. We can contact one of our mentors and kind of walk through it with them as well. You can pull up a podcast and listen and follow along. But that idea of validating your own emotions first is a really important part of being able to maintain that practice in reality with others.
This has been such a rich episode. Gary, we're going to have to invite you to come back again and join us again because I literally feel like we just barely scratched the surface here. But I want to thank you for pouring into our community. So I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that there are listeners and viewers that absolutely want to engage with you, or they want to get more resources, how can they do that?
Yeah, if they want to be very professional, they can follow me on LinkedIn at Garrett Wood Gnosis Therapy, or they can go to my website, gnosistherapy.com. Or if they're on Instagram, they can go there as well, Gnosis Therapy.
Fantastic. So, to our community, we want to engage with Garrett. I'm going to invite you. You see the link here. He's also on LinkedIn. Please go ahead and contact Garrett. Let him know that you heard this episode. Ask him questions and let him know really and truly what resonated with you and what you're going to commit to continue to grow in having guilt-free boundaries. Garrett, thank you again. It has been an honor and a pleasure to have you here with us in Transformation Station. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. So fun to be here for the 50th episode.
Yeah. Thanks so much. All right. Well, listen, one of the things that I love about this particular episode that we just concluded is that it was a wonderful reminder that leadership really is simple and it's real. We don't have to lead from places that are dry. We can lead from places that are fluid. How do we do that? By protecting our boundaries. That's right. Lead from alignment instead of exhaustion. If this conversation encouraged you, I'm going to invite you right now to go ahead and share it with another leader who needs to hear this today. And don't forget, we just celebrated our 50th episode. Celebration time. Come on. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button right now on whatever platform you're watching or you're listening, because I don't want you to miss a Monday or a Wednesday episode of Transformation Station. So until next time, keep leading with courage, compassion, and intention.